Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I am on the test zone map because in one of my previous videos I showed you how I made my No Man's Sky spaceship, this one right here, how I made it fly the way I wanted it to with like mouse steering and stuff. And so in that video I said, if you want me to show you some of the systems that I added into the spaceship and you'd also like an explanation as to how to build them and or why they work, then you should let me know by either just liking the video or leaving a comment. And well, it got an amount of likes, and I did have a couple of people ask me about the systems in the comments. And so, we are here today to learn. We are here today to learn, and to begin with, we have this car right here. This car doesn't do anything right now except drive around, but at the back here, you may or may not notice those hinges right there. As of right now, they are not programmed. But we can change that, and I'm going to show you how today. So to begin with, what we want this cockpit to do is we want it to open when the player is not in the seat. I'm cheesing it with a toggle right now, but you get the idea. So the way we want to do that is, first we need a way to detect when the player is in the seat. So I'm just going to do that with a distance sensor. Okay, so once you have found a spot and configuration that will reliably detect you when you are in the seat, we can now move on. I'm going to make this glass now, so you can see through it. And I'm also going to make this glass, so you can see through it. And now, you don't have to be able to see through a distance sensor in first person if you're not in the seat. So what we want is to, instead of set this to not invert trigger, which will make it so you just can't look that way. What we're going to do instead is run it through a NOR gate. And the distance sensor will stay closed, but we'll be able to look that way still. Now, as you can see right there, sometimes the distance sensor will not see us if we're going too quickly. What I'm trying to say is we need to add an extra condition for this hinge to stop opening. I'm going to set that condition to be, we need to be standing still. So we're going to set this to be probably 1 mile per hour and trigger below. Then we're going to add an AND gate right here. So we're going to put all of these into here, and then this AND gate will go into the NOR gate that powers the hinge. Now what this does is it makes it so only if the vehicle is standing still and the player is out of the seat will the canopy open. So now the sensor is not detecting us anymore, but the canopy remains closed. And if I get up to speed here a little bit and then hop out the seat, the canopy did not open until the car reached a standstill. Hopefully that made some semblance of sense. So to recap, sensor to detect player, add extra condition so thing won't open when sensor is being big dumb and can't see you anymore. And that's all there is to it. So, in this build, we have the Canopy, we have a throttle, we have an auto land, we also have an altitude control with hover blocks, and I think I'm going to do the altitude control next. So let's put that right there. Let's leave that there. And now, let's spawn in a bunch of hover blocks. Now, you may or may not be aware that if you attach a hover block to something below it that obstructs the hovering function, okay, it will just fly away like that. That is the basic principle of the hover or the UFO engine that, like, you know, makes you go really fast. But that's not what we're doing here. What we're doing here is using this technique to create an anti-gravity thing. Basically, it's quite strong for its weight and for the amount of power cores that it uses. And so we're going to use this to just make a system that will keep us in the air indefinitely. I wish there was an official way to detect when you're in the seat. That would be, like, really cool. What I'm doing here is recreating the hover logic that I used in my spaceship. As you can see, I am hovering. Now, allow me to explain how this works. We have a seat to sit in, we have gyro stabilizers to keep us upright, we have these flat connectors connecting everything together, we have this distance sensor to keep us off the floor, which is really not necessary, but it's a neat little gimmick. We have the hover blocks, obviously, and we have our distance sensors. Not distance sensors, fucking speed sensors. That's the word. The speed sensors go into their respective AND gates. The upwards facing one ensures that we don't go upwards too quickly, so that it actually hovers instead of just infinitely going up. Basically, the distance sensor, it's not a distance sensor, oh my. The speed sensor looks down. If speed sensor sees that we are going down, send signal to AND gate. If AND gate also detects that the down button is not being pressed, then AND logic gate will send signal to go down hover block to turn it off, and then build goes up. This speed sensor looks up, sees if we are going up. If we are going up, sends signal to this AND gate. If AND gate detects that we are not pressing button to go up, then it will turn off the top hover block and make us go down. This distance sensor sees if we are 1 meter off the ground. If we are closer to the ground than 1 meter, it will override both of these systems and make us go up. That looks like this. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Next on the list, I think we have the toggle throttle system, which is really, really easy. So let me add a seat, some places to add blocks, some thrusters. This is exactly how this system works in my spaceship. We need a accumulator with -1 minimum and 1 maximum. We're going to use steps, and we're going to set the up to shift and the bottom to control. Actually, we're going to set it to W and S. So So that's how that works. Then we're going to send that into comparison gates. 1, 2, 3. Hook them all up. Set them to equals. This one is going to be -1. This one is going to be 0. And this one's going to be 1. We're going to send it into AND gates in case that we want extra conditions to be met. In this case, there won't really be, but it's just good to have, in my opinion. I'm going to have a basic reaction control on the side here. And I'm also going to have a system at the back that keeps us straight, but you don't have to worry about that. This is just to make it easier to explain what's happening. See, now this will keep us going this way and this way. Just stay on this line. So we'll just set that to be black because you don't need to pay attention. And you also don't really need to pay attention to this. This is basically the same system that the hoverpads had, but with a different activation combination. When we hit W, it's going to turn on this. So when this activates, it's going to go into this, which is going to power these. When nothing happens, it's going to ultimately power this AND gate, which will then run into this, which is our reaction control system, which will stop us from moving. If we want to go backwards, it'll run into this AND gate, which will go into these thrusters. And that's going to look like this. As you can see, the reaction control is working. If we hit W once, it'll toggle to the forwards mode, and we will start going. If I hit S, it'll take us back to 0, and the reaction control will start working again. It'll stop us from moving forwards, and it'll stop us from moving backwards. Now, if we hit S again, it'll take us to reverse, and we will start going backwards. Nice and simple. And that is the throttle system that I have at the back of my ship. Like in... Let me see if I can show this off without going into free cam. All of these thrusters right here, these pink ones, that is what they are doing. The same thing that is in this build. So to recap, accumulator gives us reverse gear, neutral gear, and forward gear. Goes into comparison gates. Comparison gates detect which gear is selected. Goes into AND gates. AND gates are not necessary, but it helps if you want extra conditions to be met and not just these ones. This one, let's color code them really quick. These two are responsible for reverse gear. Reverse gear makes it so these ones fire and build goes backwards. This is responsible for forwards gear. If this one's on, these ones will turn on and build will go forwards. If none of these are turned on, I need to pull up my nose. If we're in neutral gear in 0, then this one will be on, which will toggle on our stopping mechanism. So we don't have to just wait to slow down, we can just force it to stop. This also works in 0G. Go forwards. Stop. And go backwards. Ta-da. That's all you need to know. Explaining the auto land function only really works if you already have a spaceship to auto land with, but I'm gonna try my best. Okay, so I've more or less applied all of the systems that are in that spaceship into a small rig for demonstrating the auto land feature right here. So now what we need to do is set up a bunch of conditions that you want to be met in order for the auto land to enable. I want the build to not be going forwards or backwards, as expressed by this AND gate, and I want the build to be less than 6 meters off the ground. That is all going to go into this AND gate, So this goes in here, and this also goes in here. And then we're going to set... We're going to set a keybind. For me, it's going to be E. And it's going to turn this up to be 1. So when the conditions are met... both are being met. So why is it not even being... Why is it not even considering... Why not? That's... I'm gonna cry. I don't understand. It doesn't... I'm placing a new AND gate. This needs to be met. And this needs to be met. There you go. Now, if I hit E, you can see the accumulator turned on. And it's an accumulator because I also used it. I used the same system to take back off again. But basically, when this is on, this will trigger a whole bunch of things to happen. So first, I want to override this. And I want to keep these turned off no matter what happens. And we landed. And now we're going to set a little bit of delay, because in No Man's Sky there's a little bit of delay before it makes you take off. E to land, W to take off again. I did not set it to -1. Very important that you set it to -1, otherwise it's just not going to do anything. E to land, W to take off again, and away we go. E to land, W to take off again. So, to recap, landing system needs certain conditions to be met. I want it to be close enough to the ground, and I want it to be going slow enough. When those are met and I press a button, it'll turn on an accumulator. Accumulator will do certain things to make the ship land, and then the ship lands. Then to take off again, we press a different key to turn off the accumulator. Then the ship does the opposite to what it did, thanks to this sensor which keeps it off the ground. It'll go up, and then you'll be able to start flying again. So to see that in action, we hit E to land, then we hit W to get back up again, and away we go. So hopefully that also made sense. There is one system left that we need to do. Just one. And it's my favorite one, to be honest. It's the mouse steering. Gyro to pitch up. Gyro to yaw. Sensor that is positive correlates to a negative arrow on the gyro, because when you look in that direction, the signal coming from it is going to be weaker. So the signal from this is going to overpower this dual sensor system. The two sensors are actuated by a aiming servo. The wedges do the talking to the sensors. The sensors then translate that into movement in the gyro, and then the gyro moves. So that looks like this. Down, up, right, left, down left, up right, and going down, going up, crashing into the ground, going right, going left, crashing into my spaceship. If you enjoyed my tutorials, like and subscribe. See you in the next one. Peace.